Hello and welcome to Your Place. I am Dennis McGinn, founder and CEO of vehicle reconditioning and communications company, Rapid Recon. And about 3 times a month on Your Place, we visit guests at their place to engage in conversations about the auto industry. Today, we're talking with Ted Ings, Executive Director of the Fixed Ops Roundtable and the Center for Performance Improvement. With that, let's get into it. Ted, I've heard so much about your roundtable and the great material and the people you bring together to talk about it. Could you give us an idea for my audience how you got from where you are to this?
And Dennis, let me start by saying thank you very much. A great honor to be with you today and with Rapid Recon. You've built a fantastic company, and I've met a lot of the folks who work for you. And I got to tell you that the name Rapid Recon is at the top in automotive retail. So, and no better time to be in that space than right now today. I've been in the automotive retail business for many years, and I can't believe it's been about 40 years. But in the course of that time, and I worked retail for 10 years before I got into the training industry. So I've been in dealerships for, this whole time, thousands of dealerships. I met many people during that time, and as a result of that, I put together about 3 years ago a small event in my office called the Fixed Operations Roundtable to talk about best practices. And I wasn't sure if anybody was going to show up. And now today, of course, we're doing our 15th event shortly. And we have thousands and thousands of people who come through to watch the Fixed Ops Roundtable. And Dennis, I think that what you and I are doing is very timely right now because dealers are looking for a better way and better processes and better ideas. That's why they go to events, right? And they go to 20 groups and they want to talk to their peers. So this is kind of like going to a 20 group, but really not having to leave your home or your office and being able to do it on your time. And it's comfortable and it's a lot of fun. And again, we have hundreds of people who speak at each event now.
That's really fascinating that you can take something and scale it like that, or you have that many people. I mean, how do you? And I assume you people can review it later and all that. But what's the secret for being able to have that much good information and all doing it at that scale?
I think like any business owner, you've got to be determined and you got to love what you do. I love this industry. And I built a very good name over the years so that when I asked, at the early roundtables, people like Fred Beans or who's the largest dealer in Pennsylvania, or Brian Benstock at Paragon Honda, and they've both been clients for 20 plus years. When I asked them to speak, they drew upon my reputation, knowing that it probably had to be a quality event, although nobody had heard about it yet at the time. And it is a quality event. We bring quality people together. And at this next event, we have Greg Penske speaking, and that's going to be followed by Roger Penske. And I have worked a long time to build those relationships that I can ask folks like that to speak. And and you know what, Dennis, it's for the industry to hear Greg Penske, who does not give interviews. I did some homework, and I said, you know what? Let me look on YouTube. Let me find the last interview he did and see how he handled some of the questions. Dennis, I couldn't find an interview on YouTube.
I know.
With Penske. So we get some people that other people can't get. And it gives us a really good audience. And it's a lot of entertainment, too. We had Jay Leno last year speak. And the reason we had Jay on the show is that we have a charitable aspect to each of our events. Right now, we're raising $100,000 for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. And as you know, automotive retail is very generous. So last year, we had Jay come on the show. Our mission then was prostate cancer. And this year, it's, as I mentioned, leukemia and lymphoma. And we had Tom Dahl at the last event. Tom is the president and CEO of Subaru of America. And Tom kicked us off. He did a very nice 30-minute segment on what goes on behind the scenes at Subaru of America for Fixed Ops. And then at the end, Tom said, let me start you off with $10,000 from Subaru. And then the dealers just jumped in. Liza Borges at Carter Myers said, I'll give you $5,000. And then Adam Aarons up at the Patriot Automotive Group said, I'll match it. I'll give you five. And then it just kind of snowballed from there.
That is awesome. I mean, you're right. I mean, with Greg and Roger and those people, they're not available. Everybody wants to talk to them. So my hat's off to you. And, you know, that whole family's got a lot of great brain power. And guys like Roger are so smart. I mean, he reads the Rapid Recon report every month, because the guy that goes through it with him tells me, and he says, if he can catch something that doesn't add up in a nanosecond, and then they're on me. So okay, I don't mind that.
But it's amazing the tools that you have brought to market, that people like a Roger Penske use the tools that Rapid Recon provides. And that says a lot about your business and your reputation. You know, the fact that I've been told, and I just interviewed Greg, that when they have their meetings, you know, Roger and Greg sit in on those meetings and they look up how each dealership is doing and how they're performing and what they're expected to do. So the fact that they would draw on a Rapid Recon report is pretty powerful, Dennis.
Well, thank you. And you know, when I started this thing 12 years ago, it was because somebody I knew, a Lexus dealer here in the Bay Area in Fremont, grabbed me and said, hey, there's this reconditioning problem, and everybody says they know what's going on, but nobody does. They're all just kidding each other. They're trying to make everybody feel better. And so I got involved with the thing and said, this is ridiculous. I mean, these guys don't want to know the answer because they don't trust anybody. So I got to fix that problem first. Anyway, that was a long time ago, but probably similar to what you're experiencing. Although we've come, I think, a reasonable distance, there's still a long ways to go. I mean, there's so much opportunity for efficiency gains. I mean, certainly in the speed to getting things ready to sell, it's kind of infinite, right? But now I can see the ones that are really doing what they said thought they were doing years ago, and the ones that are just still trying. So at least we have that best practices, which I think you do a lot of that. So
I just interviewed, and we record a lot of our interviews, right? They may look like it's live, and some of it is live, Dennis. But you know, sometimes you want to make sure things are recorded to make sure that everything goes just right. I had a gentleman named Fernando on the show, and he's going to appear on the first day of the roundtable. He is the CEO of Step One Automotive Group in Fort Walton Beach, Florida. And Step One is 24 locations in 3 states. And this gentleman has been in the automobile business for 25 years in Europe and Latin America. He's got an MBA, and he started this dealership group here. And it is growing and growing and growing. And he was in his war room for the interview, and he had 24 monitors. They had the camera pulled back, Dennis, and we saw all these monitors, and he's watching the KPIs at each of his dealerships. And Dennis, he was so proud. He told me he was investing, and he showed me the pictures, in a 3.7 acre reconditioning center for his dealership group, because the focus now is on getting those cars frontline ready and you know, making sure they're right in the shortest amount of time. And reconditioning is such a big part of what Step One Automotive Group is doing right now. So I have never heard so much about it as I have in the past few months. And I think it's only going to continue to get better.
I totally agree. I mean, the chip problem's not going away, you know, and the retailers are making more money than they've ever made on that. So they got people used to paying that. The customers are not unhappy. So I will tell you, I'm spending a lot of my time working on this transparency aspect, helping groups and so on to get that in front of their customers, because the shoppers are so much smarter now. I mean, you know, it used to be the Highline guys wanted to know all the details. Now it's all the way up and down. They all been looking at Amazon, so they're looking at evaluating things, and they don't want to ask anybody those questions. Same thing, right? So they want to do their own homework, They want to know whether it's about safety or comfort or battery, you know, mileage, not mileage, but basically the distance a battery can go, all those things. So I think it's really exciting. I think it's exciting that the industry is moving forward on this with a lot of technology as well. And I also think, and you probably have seen this too, there are a lot of younger people coming into this industry with fresh ideas,
Yeah.
and they're much
Hmm.
more up to date in terms of using their phones and using the analytics and tools to kind of figure out what's going on and relating it to the stuff on the ground, which, as I
You
said when I
just
began, nobody liked that.
you just mentioned transparency, and I think this younger generation embraces and expects transparency. And I think it's never, and we're hearing so much about that in service pricing, in parts, in body shop, and in reconditioning. We just had a panel. You'll like the name of the panel. It was called the Women of Recon, Dennis, and it was led by Stephanie McLaughlin from your organization, and it had all women on that from Rapid Recon. And let me tell you something. They talked about redefining that process, and transparency was a big part of it, especially when we talked about the female consumer who expects that transparency. So I think back years ago, Dennis, if you remember 15, 20 years ago, and maybe not even that long. We talked about transparency in the finance office, F&I, in the business
Yeah.
office, and a lot of folks said, "Oh, that's never going to happen. The dealers aren't going to go for that." Well, guess what? Now that transparency is expected there, so it's worked its way over now to the new front of the dealership, which is not the sales department anymore. The front of the dealership, I believe, is now service, parts, and body. That's the front of the dealership because guess what? That's the focus right now that dealers want to get better at. And to do that, transparency is one of the hot topics that's being discussed and implemented right now around the country.
Well, that. I love hearing that, as you can expect. Um, you know, my background was Hewlett Packard. I mean, we got involved with quality and transparency and all that after World War II when we had Deming coming back from
Deming.
Japan and trying to tell everybody what quality was about, and it took a while for Detroit to catch up. Uh, but to me, I've always kind of lived in this accountability bubble and not just guessing at things. So it's been a lot of fun, I think, to be able to bring something to this industry. Um, and it just, you and I probably are on parallel paths to this thing
Mm.
because I feel like I'm just getting started. I mean, I just love the industry like you do, and I love people saying, "Oh my gosh, that's really made a big difference." And they can look at, I mean, they can tell you, they can look at the analytics and say, now I know why." And in my world, it's a behavioral change, right? The whole behavioral thing is trusting the data and doing something about it, and it doesn't really sustain itself unless you can verify, you know, what's been going on, and so we're probably on the same path there. Um, but I just love the industry. I'm so glad to hear that you had the women in there. That Stephanie has been a miraculous person. I've been working with her since. I mean, I met her outside of a breakfast place probably 12, 13 years ago in Chicago. And so I've had my hand in every one of these people, these persons' growth in their lives, and then they're all making big contributions to the people they work with in the industry. Tell me kind of a little bit about your thoughts looking at what's going on in the industry kind of today and how the people from your roundtables are saying, well, here are the things that we need to really have our hands around in the next 6 to 9 months in order to continue to improve all the things that are important to the customer. Obviously, transparency is in there.
Is one of them, right? The clearly, Dennis, the growth that's going to happen in automotive retail over the next 10 years plus and this is one of the things I discussed with Greg Penske, we talked about that as well, is going to happen in fixed operations. That is the number one driver. There's actually a McKinsey study that was done. Brian Benstock showed us a report from McKinsey, and it talked about F&I. It talked about all different profit areas in a retail dealership, but far and away, the top one was in the fixed operations department. And that's going to be the focus because, as like you said, a lot of things that we can't control, like the chip shortage and so on, we can control here in fixed ops. There are going to be some new things introduced, some new profit centers with EVs that are coming. We didn't talk a whole lot about EVs a year or two ago. Now it's front and center. And Dennis, dealers are preparing the infrastructure so that they'll be able to properly address the EV market as it continues to grow. I think was 3.3 or 4% last year.
Yeah.
It's small and it's going to grow incrementally, but it's not going to go the other way. It's going to get bigger. And I just interviewed a dealership who has 100 service bays over several locations, and they just put in these rapid chargers in every one of the bays for their technicians. And the reason is that the manufacturers are requiring that when a customer brings their vehicle in, EV in for service, that the vehicle be returned with an 80% or greater charge, even if it's in for a small issue. So there's a need for these rapid chargers. And so we see dealers now preparing the infrastructure for that. There are going to be a lot of new services I mentioned that are going to be offered to customers in terms of warranty and over-the-air things that'll be done with vehicles as well. So things we have not had in the past, the ADAS systems, that started out in the last 10 years are really the forerunner to what's coming now, okay? And, dealers are aware of it and they're preparing for it. They're also preparing their people. One of the things I liked about the panel we did yesterday with Rapid Recon, the women of Recon, is this focus on women in retail. It's been a focus of the Fixed Ops Roundtable for several years, and it is growing and growing and growing because of the importance that women consumers want to deal with other women. They trust other women. There's a relationship factor as well. And as your folks told us yesterday, there's also an attention to detail that women may have that, is transcended when they are part of the process. So we're seeing, I think 2 years ago, we did a panel, our first panel of women in automotive retail. At this most recent event, we did 4 panels with all women, okay? One of them was with the Walzer Automotive Group, whom up in Minnesota. And Walzer did a panel, 5 women out of 6 participants, 1 man, and it was called Not Like the Other Guys. And it talked about all the things they do to focus on women consumers and women employees, as well as all employees as well. So I like a lot of these things that we're got a great vantage point at the roundtable, to be aware of some of these best practices as well as technologies, and I get a chance to see them before some other people see them as well. So I'm really excited about that.
Well, you're talking to the choir, Ted. I mean, this has been a passion of mine. Even at Hewlett Packard, I went out of my way to bring in A-type females who could oversee these things. And back when we were learning to sell computers against IBM, it was a distinct advantage. I mean, right? I mean, it just was. And but I'm thrilled that we have a good start there. But I'm going to keep going down that track because I'm totally up with that whole idea. And I don't know. I just think it's a great trend. And yes, I remember not that long ago, most of the people driving Maseratis were guys. Now they're all women. I mean, and
historically,
Palo Alto. Yeah, I'm in Palo Alto, and every time you come to a stop anywhere around here, there are always 3 Teslas, and most of them are driven by women. So,
you're so right. And I had a chance to spend time in Palo Alto. Tully Williams, who's one of our speakers, I met him when he was the service manager at John Anderson owned a dealership in San Jose called Courtesy Chevrolet, and I would stay in Palo Alto, and I would make that extra long commute. Okay, but that's an incredible market, by the way, that you've got
Yes.
there, and so much happening in that, and a lot of that now is it's working its way into retail, where we had a lot of the technology on the front end of the dealership, Dennis, as I mentioned earlier, in variable and then in F&I. A lot of the technology, as you know, is now coming into the service and parts department and body shop. So there's a lot
Yes.
of new stuff that dealers need to be aware of to help them do their business more efficiently, like you're talking about. And I know you're a big part of that solution as well.
Well, we are moving fast to try and fill in some of the blanks. And it kind of started with the idea of giving people something that they could manage their own accountability, really the basics. And then it moved to approvals and speed and the car's still in the rack and, we're going to go in, here are all the recommended repairs. We know we're going to always do some of them and so on. And it just made things move faster. But in my little world, where I beat the drum about time to line, which I really picked up from my BMW buddies a while back, it's really the speed to sale and time to line are kind of like almost the same now with the market the way it is. And uh, I haven't had to, do too many things to try and come up with, okay, when was the car really sold? But, it's, it there's so far to go with this thing. And I think
Yeah.
the brick and mortar proposition is it's such a big deal. Um, I
Yeah.
think some of these groups like Lithia are getting it right, and some of them are creating a mess out there. I think some of the volume guys that are just putting numbers on the wall for volume and
Mm.
build indicators and of course they're just I don't think they're doing a service to the industry, but that's just my personal opinion. Thank you, Ted. I will see you soon, and really appreciate your time.
Thank you.